It's the latest legal saga for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
The royal couple has launched legal action in America.
This time to protect their young son.
This week, Harry and Meghan take on the paparazzi. Philip makes a rare appearance. And we break down the new bombshell book, Finding Freedom, in the People cover story.
Welcome to the Royal Report, everyone. I'm your host, Sharon Carpenter. It's been another busy week for the royal family, so let's get right to the news. Last Wednesday, Prince Philip stepped out for a rare public appearance at Windsor Castle to transfer one of his most important military titles to Camilla. After 13 years as the Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles, the largest infantry regiment in the British Army, the Duke was officially succeeded by his daughter-in-law, who accepted the honour in a separate ceremony at Highgrove House. Great to see Philip looking so healthy and happy. On Thursday, William and Kate announced that the Royal Foundation has granted over $2 million to 10 leading charities at the heart of mental health and frontline support. Earlier in the week, the Duke and Duchess met with representatives from 4 of the organizations to thank them for their ongoing efforts during the coronavirus pandemic. On Friday, we learned that Harry and Meghan are suing unnamed photographers after images surfaced of 14-month-old Archie playing in the backyard of their Los Angeles home. The strongly worded legal documents state that while the Duke and Duchess's work is newsworthy, the photos at issue are not news, they are not in the public interest, they are harassment. That same day, the Queen conducted a video call with several staff members from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which is responsible for promoting the UK's interests overseas. In addition to receiving a briefing on the department's work following the COVID-19 outbreak, the Queen also took part in her first ever virtual portrait unveiling. Take a look.
With Your Majesty's permission, Miriam and I will unveil her picture of Your Majesty.
Very well, that's very good. Well, I'm glad to have had a chance to see it. Hope I'll see it in real life one day.
On Sunday, Prince William announced the Mentally Healthy Football Declaration, which will see leagues and organisations from across the UK making this important issue a priority at all levels of the game. In an emotional video shared by Kensington Royal, the Duke provided voiceover and discussed why these efforts are needed now more than ever.
Not only will this benefit future generations who work and play within the game, but it will also send a clear message to football's millions of fans about the importance of mental health. That is a legacy we can all be proud of, following a season we will never forget.
And William wasn't done promoting this landmark declaration. On Monday, the Duke shared a video call from earlier this month where he spoke with several current soccer players, as well as legendary English midfielder David Beckham, about the importance of prioritising mental health. After a heartfelt discussion, the Prince thanked the panel for their willingness to help promote this issue during this challenging time.
I can't thank you all enough for your time. It's been really fascinating hearing your talk, and obviously hearing it from the horse's mouth, as it were, is the best way of being able to sort of formulate a plan. And I really hope you guys feel that the tide is turning on mental health, and we are making progress.
Also on Monday, we learned that following their secret wedding ceremony on July 17th, Princess Beatrice and her new husband, Edoardo Mopelli-Mozzi, are currently on a small honeymoon in France. A source also revealed that the newlyweds are planning a longer and more luxurious trip next month. So glad they're getting to enjoy married life. And finally, this week's People cover story features an exclusive excerpt from the highly anticipated book, Finding Freedom, Harry and Meghan and the Making of a Modern Royal Family, which comes out on August 11th. And that brings us to today's guest, the writer of this week's cover story, People Senior Royals editor, Michelle Tauber. Michelle, how are you doing? It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks, Sharon.
All right, we're so glad you're here to talk about this week's cover story, which, as I just mentioned, features an exclusive excerpt from Finding Freedom, Harry and Meghan and the Making of a Modern Royal Family, which comes out in just 2 weeks. First off, how big a deal is this book, Michelle?
It's a big deal. You know, the last time a Royals book was published that generated this much buzz, it was in 1992. And that was the famous Diana, Her True Story book by Andrew Morton. And at the time, people were, you know, kind of completely bowled over by the revelations about what Diana was experiencing in her marriage, you know, this miserable marriage, her anguish behind palace walls. And she, you know, was later revealed that Diana herself actually had participated in this book. So there hasn't been a book that with that many bombshells in the royal world since then, since 1992.
Wow. Well, let's give a little background on the authors. Carolyn Durand and Omid Scobie, who are they and what exactly is their royal access? How inside do we think they were able to get?
Carolyn and Omid are both veteran royal journalists. They have been on this beat for many, many years, decades, in fact. So they are very well sourced within royal circles in terms of both within the palace walls, palace aides, courtiers, that kind of thing, and also friends. And of course, for this book, particularly friends within Meghan and Harry's inner circle.
So tell us what the book is about. Obviously, the title says the making of the modern royal family, but what does that really mean? And what kind of revelations can we expect?
Yeah, so, you know, this book is really exploring the beginning of Meghan and Harry's relationship, starting with their romance, through, of course, this, you know, kind of extraordinary journey they took in a very short amount of time. Meghan, in particular, going from an American actress to a member of the royal family kind of at lightning speed. But obviously with this incredible twist that the authors both admitted when I talked to them that they didn't see coming, which was Harry and Meghan making their stunning decision to walk away from royal duty and step down as senior royals.
Wow. So what can you tell us about Harry and Meghan's involvement? I feel like I've seen conflicting reports as far as their participation or lack thereof. So how authorized is this book?
So yeah, to set the record straight, the authors themselves are very clear that the book is unauthorized. They told me that unlike the Princess Diana book Andrew Morton wrote, that they felt they were able to have more journalistic freedom because, of course, as Omid Scobie told me, that book was micromanaged by Diana. And in this case, they had the freedom to speak to various members of the circle and take a more journalistic approach. As far as the couple themselves, the Duke and Duchess, they have said through a spokesperson that they had no involvement, did not give interviews, did not arrange for any interviews, and that all of the research was done independently by the two authors.
Interesting. Well, I also wanted to ask about the title Finding Freedom, which is a fairly loaded pair of words. I'm curious what you make of it, and any word on the palace's reaction specifically to the title, because the implication seems to be that Harry and Meghan were in some way imprisoned by the royal family.
Yeah, it is a provocative title. You're right. And, you know, of course, it shouldn't surprise anyone that the palace has not had any official reaction to the book. That's their standard operating procedure, as we know. So I think as far as Meghan and Harry feeling imprisoned or trapped, I think certainly the implication is yes, the freedom they sought was outside of the restrictions placed upon them by the institution. And that's another thing the authors stressed with me, that for, you know, in large part, you know, the family, the royal family, sometimes ends up getting mixed up with the institution, which is the monarchy itself. And it's understandable, of course, because it's a family business. But for the most part, the freedom that Meghan and Harry were seeking was outside of the institution, not necessarily the family.
Ah, good point. Very good point. So moving on to the excerpt, I love the way it dives right into Harry and Meghan's first date, so romantic, which really was 3 dates back to back to back. What surprised you most about those details?
I think for Royal Watchers, that was one of the most fun sections of the book because we kind of got to fill in a lot of the gaps about things that we've been curious about for a while, right? So, so the book sort of puts you as a fly on the wall for that very first date, which surprisingly, there were other friends present. It wasn't just the two of them. So that surprised us. It was kind of a group hang at one of the London Soho House locations. And Meghan ordered a martini, Harry had a beer, there was some food on the table that neither one of them touched. And it was really clear from the book that Harry in particular was completely smitten from the get-go. He told friends that Meghan, was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. And one of the details I loved is that after this first date, which was the group meetup, Harry sent Meghan texts, and he loves emojis. I mean, who doesn't? I do too. So he's an emoji guy, and his favorite emoji is the ghost emoji. You know, that could be his boo Meghan, it could be Harry, you know, kind of wanting to be a little cryptic. It's the authors say they're not exactly, they weren't able to kind of pinpoint why the ghost, but it's the ghost.
I like that though, his boo.
That's
boo.
Yeah.
His boo Meghan. Okay, I get that.
So, and then as you say, it takes us through the next two dates, which were just the two of them. And the romance just really quickly developed. By the third day, one of the details I loved is that Meghan is taking just a regular black cab to Kensington Palace, where Harry was living at the time. He was living in Knott Cottage. They call it Knott Cot. And that's a fun scene the authors paint where she's expecting chandeliers and red plush carpets. And instead what she finds is this really pretty kind of quaint, charming little cottage with Harry towering inside, his head like, you know, about to hit the ceiling, which I thought was cute.
And the coats hanging up right there in the hallway as well, reminded me of my own place. Yep. I also thought the part about the Palisade calling Meghan early on to sort of chastise her about how she was handling the paparazzi was really interesting. And how Meghan said, quote, "I can't win," because she felt she'd be criticized no matter what she did. Also, it really shows how Meghan felt like she was on the defensive from day one. Do you agree?
I do. I think she felt that she was caught off guard by the level of scrutiny. You know, obviously this is a woman who's familiar with the paparazzi of Los Angeles and growing up in Hollywood and in the public eye. But this was a level that, you know, everyone can agree that it's kind of nothing can prepare you for, right? So that includes the scrutiny coming from within the palace itself. And as you mentioned, Meghan wore a necklace that had the initials H and M. And this was before the relationship was being buzzed about, but before there was a photo of the two of them together, Harry and Meghan. So when she wore the necklace, of course, you know, it caught the paparazzi's attention. It caught the media at large's attention. We covered the necklace at the time. But what the book sheds light on is that, as you mentioned, here she is getting a call from palace aides saying, "We don't do that sort of thing. You know, please don't wear jewelry that is going to provoke that kind of attention." And she was saying that the sort of damned if she does, damned if she doesn't, is that she was, you know, feeling like, okay, I was criticized for not smiling for paparazzi 2 days ago. Now I smiled, and either way, I'm in trouble. So that, as you say, that was something she was facing from the get-go.
Tough position to be in. I guess we knew the book would get into Meghan and Kate's relationship, and I thought the description of their first meeting in January 2018 was fascinating. What did you make of that part?
Yeah, so Meghan, you know, I think was hoping for maybe a more a more warm welcome. Yes, warm welcome than she received. And the book portrays Kate as kind of a neutral figure in this. You know, Kate, of course, has 3 young children. And I think the book is also clear that she's a very guarded person. She has a very small circle of friends she keeps extremely close. And although, you know, she potentially could have been someone to really show Meghan the ropes, the book portrays her as kind of, you know, otherwise occupied. And, you know, there's a scene at that meeting which, where Meghan brings a gift of a Smithson leather journal for Kate, which was a thoughtful gift and kind of lavishes a lot of attention on Princess Charlotte, which I think, you know, helped create, you know, a good kind of first step for that relationship, but it never really gets off the ground.
And then the Harry and William section, that was almost heartbreaking. Of course, we already knew there'd been a real rift between them, but reading this depiction was really eye-opening. Do you agree?
I do. You know, this book elaborates on our own reporting, which was, we knew that Prince William had warned his brother that he thought the relationship with Meghan was moving too quickly. That has always been, all of our sources have always told us that was sort of the source of the rift, and which would then widen as the months went on. But this book offers more detail. So the authors write that Prince William did indeed warn Harry and said, take your time, take all the time you need with this girl. And Harry was insulted by the phrase, this girl, felt it disrespectful to Meghan. And in general, the book kind of, elaborates on how the different personalities, I think there's a line, like something like there's a fine line between caring and condescension. And, Harry felt that William was being condescending. William felt he was being a, thoughtful older brother, protective older brother. And that miscommunication kind of really sparked what would become a pretty big conflict between the brothers.
Probably something a lot of siblings can relate to as well.
Absolutely.
Now, the last section I want to touch on, the behind the scenes details about Harry and Meghan stepping back from their royal duties. I think a lot of people thought it was simply a matter of making an announcement, but the financial issues alone were extremely complicated, which led me to one of my favorite quotes in the excerpt. They've created a complete headache for everyone, an exhausted aide complained on the 5th day of meetings. Just how surprising was that information?
Again, I think we knew that this was a complex negotiation. I mean, it was never going to be a simple matter. Although, as you say, I think Harry and Meghan perhaps hoped that it would be easier than it was. But I think the level of detail is what is so fascinating in this book. So yes, so here they are, 5 days in, negotiating taxes and the sovereign grant and those kinds of things. And you could see where the aides would feel exhausted by the process. So I think it's sort of understandable that the tensions would have been boiling over at this point. But again, maybe not something Harry and Meghan had expected.
Now, when this book does come out on August 11th, how do you think it will affect relationships within the royal family?
Well, I think that anytime the royal family's private business is made public, they are unhappy. And this is a family that has preserved their mystique for centuries. And that mystique has served them really well. They're not a Hollywood style family where we know, what goes on. They don't share. So that the fact others share about them, that really flies in the face of sort of their personal code of conduct. And certainly the palace's preference is that this kind of thing not be made public. So I think there will be many in the royal family, both the family itself and the aides, who find the book just another example of, private matters being made public since Harry and Meghan became a couple. I think there's a sense that has sort of become a pattern.
Well, so far, have you heard anything from your palace sources as far as how the Queen is reacting to the book and all the media attention surrounding it?
The one thing we hear from our sources is that the Queen is, so close with Harry and vice versa. Harry is so close with the Queen that, she's really good at compartmentalizing in terms of her love for her grandson is unwavering. She wants his happiness. She wants, Meghan and Harry together to be happy. Archie, obviously, one of the things Omid told me was, he said, there was a lot made out of, people were saying, how is the Queen going to see Archie? This is all so terrible. They're not even close, when the first rift started to happen. And he said, sources were saying no one saw Archie more during the time that Meghan and Harry were living in Windsor, because they were just up, down the hill. So, so she is close with Harry, and with, that little family. And I think she will put aside, I think this book will be noise to her, and her relationship relationship with Harry is kind of sacrosanct.
So fascinating. And finally, what have you heard as far as Harry and Meghan's reaction?
You know, they are officially no reaction. They are very focused on what's next for them. And obviously that has been disrupted by the global pandemic, by even, you know, the national Black Lives Matter movement here in America has refocused some of their energies. So they were all set to launch Archewell, you know, sort of immediately upon, not immediately, but soon after leaving, you know, their royal duty. And another thing Omid said was, he said, you know, I think this is a couple that really needed the lockdown, but didn't know they needed the lockdown because they are kind of a constantly working pair. So they've had time to reevaluate kind of what they want to do with this foundation. And again, this book is very much officially not on their radar.
All right, Michelle, great stuff as always. Thank you so much for being in. I can't wait to read the entire book when it comes out August 11th.
Fascinating. Yes, thank you, Sharon.
Truly. The Royal Report will be right back. Welcome back. It's time now for our social media minutes with our social media correspondent, Jillian Fleischman. Jillian, how's it going?
Hi, Sharon. I'm great. Good to see you.
So what do you have for us today?
There were such great posts this week. Last Wednesday, the Clarence House story gave us a closer look at the ceremony that took place at Windsor Castle and Highgrove House that day. The Duchess of Cornwall, seen here at Highgrove, succeeded the Duke of Edinburgh as the Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles, the largest infantry regiment of the British Army. Prince Philip had held the position since 1953, and buglers marked the transfer. We hadn't seen the Duke out publicly in a while, and it was great to see him. Last Thursday, we noticed a change to the display name of the Clarence House Twitter page. Following William and Kate's move on Kensington Royal a couple months ago, Camilla and Charles removed Clarence House and replaced it with the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. It's a small change, but definitely makes the page feel more personal. Also last Thursday, the royal family's Instagram marked the reopening of royal residences by revealing the previously hidden artwork now on display at Windsor Castle. 16 paintings of popular fairy tale characters, including Cinderella and Puss in Boots, commissioned during World War II. They served as a backdrop for then Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret's pantomime shows in the castle's Waterloo Chamber. The shows raised money for the Royal Household Wool Fund, which supplied yarn to make blankets for soldiers fighting at the front. Normally, that wall space was occupied for a series of priceless royal portraits, but they had been removed for safekeeping. After the war, these portraits were put back, hiding these paintings until now. I would love to see these in person. And finally, this past Saturday, the royal family's page posted a new portrait of the Queen, which was unveiled during a call with the UK's Foreign Office. The Queen has visited over 100 countries throughout her reign, and the portrait pays tribute to her contribution to British diplomacy. What a meaningful work of art. And that's your social media minute.
Now, Gillian, I'm fascinated by the fairy tale paintings on display at Windsor Castle. Just so I'm clear, these paintings were on the wall behind the royal portraits after they were moved.
Yeah, it really is a great story. These were actually painted on rolls of wallpaper and mounted on the wall to fill the space that had become empty because royal portraits had been moved during the war for safekeeping. Once the war was over, the original art was put back on top of these paintings, but now, because of maintenance work at Windsor Castle, these paintings have been unveiled again. The only other time they were seen was in 1992 when there was a fire at the castle and those royal portraits were once again removed for their protection. So the Queen has given visitors an amazing gift by putting these on display.
Wow, what a story. The Queen never stops surprising us, does she? Great stuff today, Gillian. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
It's time for a quick break, but the Royal Report will be right back. Welcome back. Next, we have an anniversary I'm betting most of you probably forgot all about. 8 years ago Monday, the Queen made a surprise appearance that was seen all over the world. Here's a look.
Greetings to all of you, wherever you are in the world, to the City of London for the Olympic Games of 2012.
On July 27, 2012, London played host to the Summer Olympic Games. The opening ceremony was a star-studded spectacle, but none shone brighter than Queen Elizabeth, escorted by the most iconic member of Her Majesty's Secret Service, Bond. James Bond. as played by Daniel Craig.
Good evening, Mr. Bond.
Good evening, Your Majesty.
900 million viewers delighted in her surprise appearance as the Queen bid farewell to her beloved corgis before taking to the skies over London for a thrilling helicopter ride.
Well, they're heading east. And here they are.
After reaching Olympic Stadium, the Queen bravely parachuted down into the stands so she could take her seat next to the only Brit more dashing than 007, her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Never can Her Majesty have been introduced to her public in a manner like that, and the crowd have loved it.
All right, Royal Watchers, that's our show for today. Remember to follow People on Twitter to watch the latest episodes of The Royal Report, streaming every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Sharon Carpenter. Stay safe, keep calm, and carry on.